Hello guys, in this video we are going to further see some more basics that will be required for the epipolar geometry. So the source from where I am getting these things is from this book Multiple View Geometry. So all my epipolar lectures that you will see is from this book Multiple View Geometry. So in order to learn more you can use this book. So this is a very good book that I am using. Right, so there are a few changes that we'll have to do for the camera model before we go ahead. So this was the camera model that I had explained you till now. So we had the camera center over here. So this is what one can say as the focal point. This is the focal distance, and this is the screen, the image plane that we have. So now just changing this a little bit. So here this is the new change camera model. So here you can see that the screen is over here. So initially the screen was behind and the focal point was ahead. So now what we have done is we have sort of taken this screen over here. We have just pulled this screen over here so that the screen comes in the middle and the focal point is at the behind. So you can see that over here. So this is our new camera model that we are going to use for the epipolar geometry. So the changes that I have done is just to go in hand with the book, with the notations of the book. And so you will see that changing these things, so changing this screen from here to here will not make any difference. So just let us just try to sort of verify one thing so that you sort of get an idea as to this is not very different. So say let us take this equation. So we had derived this equation using this camera model. So now let us derive the same equation using this camera model. So consider this triangle over here, this triangle C, this point and this point. So consider this triangle and consider this big triangle. So this smaller triangle and the bigger triangle. So now if you can see this angle is equal for both of the triangles because this is 90 degree. And if you see this triangle, this angle over here, so this angle is common for both the triangles. So you can see that this triangle and this triangle have the same angle, that is angle C. So by AA test, again this smaller triangle is similar to the bigger triangle that we can see over here. Now next, once that we have proved these both to be similar, so now you can take any ratio of the sides which will be equal. So say I take this ratio, so this length over here, this is nothing but x, because that is the length in my image. So my x length in my image will give me small x. So small x upon f, this is the focal distance now. So small x upon f, this thing will be equal to capital X. So this is the world coordinate, capital X upon Z. So this from here to here is Z. Also assuming that this is our origin, this is the origin of our 3D world coordinate. So this point C is 0 comma 0 comma 0, and with respect to C these other coordinates are there. So this X is nothing but from here to here is X, Y is perpendicular to the image screen, and this is Z, right? So you can see that this is Z, so you get capital X upon Z. So manipulating a little thing, so this there was this X upon F, so just making that F, so putting that F over here, multiplying by F on both the sides, you get this formula again. So you get small x, that is this is nothing but capital X into focal distance upon Z. So you can similarly derive that for Y. So here you can see that changing the camera model like this will not make any difference. So you can also verify other things that we have seen with the previous camera model. So you can do that. So now we are going to work with this camera model ahead. So that's one thing. Next, we saw about the extrinsic and the intrinsic camera matrix. So these two matrices help us to convert our world coordinate, that is this capital X, capital Y, capital Z, to a camera coordinate, that is small x, small y, and w. So this is homogeneous system. So this sort of maps the 3D world to the 2D image. So we saw about the intrinsic camera matrix and we saw about the extrinsic camera matrix. So it was this video in the extrinsic camera matrix video where I have derived this equation that you see over here, the equation for extrinsic camera matrix. So over here, if you see this part over here, if you just multiply these two matrices, and you will get a vector basically, and you just minus this from here. So this thing over here that you get minus RC, so this is nothing but this thing that you see over here. So so this is just to open up some things. So just to open these things so that I can get a good extrinsic matrix over here. And anyways, we are then going to name this full intrinsic matrix as K, bold K, because this is a matrix, and this whole extrinsic matrix we can write it like this. So this is the rotation parameters that we saw. So this is the 3D rotation matrix by which we are trying to align our camera axis to the 3D world axis. So that is this rotation matrix that you can see over here. And this matrix that you see over here, this matrix is nothing but translation. So this is so you can very uh, nicely visualize it with the 2D case. So in the 2D kind of an example, we just had a 3x3 matrix, and these elements for the 2D case were rotation, this was the translation, and these were for homography, right? So the same case is over here. So for 3D, this is the rotation, and this thing over here tells you about the translation. So hence I have just named these things as capital T. So this is rotation, that is this, and then you have translation. So these are the translation parameters. So that will just tell you how much to translate these camera vectors or camera bases, so that you can align both the camera and the world coordinate. So that is what we have seen. And then there is a zero vector over here, and there is a 1 over here. So you can also note this kind of a thing like this. So this is just a notation. And further, because this 0 and 1 are not that informative, so you can write this notation as like this. So this K belongs to this intrinsic matrix, R is this thing, and T is this thing. So you still have this row over here, 0 0 0 1, but still, because they are not very informative, you don't put that in a notation. So this is how one can represent this kind of a intrinsic and extrinsic matrix. So given K, that is given these parameters, and given the rotation and the translation, you can very well get both of these matrix, intrinsic and extrinsic matrix. So now further, the combination of these two, so if I just multiply these two matrix, I'll get a 3x4 matrix, because the input is 4 dimensional, x y z 1. So this is a 4-dimensional input, then I'm going to give to the matrix, and that is going to transform into a 3-dimensional vector x, y, and w. So hence this is a 3x4 matrix that you can see over here, and this is now what we call as a projective matrix. So why the term projective? Because you are sort of projecting the 3D world coordinates onto a 2D plane or a 2D image plane, hence the name projective matrix. So this is that projection matrix that allows you to know the relation between this 3D world coordinate and the 2D mapping. So this was what I had explained in that extrinsic video. So if you have not seen this video, you can click on this link, you will go there. Right. So now our task in stereo or in epipolar geometry is to go from the 2D matrix, that is the 2D plane, back to the 3D coordinates. So projecting was one way. So projecting means you are taking an image. So you have some object located somewhere in the 3D space. You are taking its image. So you are getting a 2D representation of the 3D world. So that is what happens when you are taking an image. Now the thing that we want to do is, given an image, now we have an image, we want to go back to the 3D world. So given an image, so we have x and y. So also we don't have w, because that w goes away into this. So because these are homogeneous coordinates, so actually what you get is nothing but this x. So this x and y is the only thing that you have, and with this x and y you now have to figure out what is the 3D world coordinate, that is the x, y and z of that particular point. So if you consider this point, so this point has a 3D world coordinate of x, y, z, and this is projected to the image plane over here. So the corresponding 2D coordinate is this x comma y. So this is a image plane. So you can view it like this. So this is an image plane, and on that image plane you have got a point that has some x and y coordinate, small x and small y coordinate. So this was forward projection, when you are projecting the 3D coordinate into the image plane. Now we want to go backwards, that is, given a x comma y, a small camera coordinate point, or an image plane point, you want to go back to 3D. That's what we want. So what one can actually think of is a simple inverse. So given this equation x, so this is a vector over here now, which is consisting of these three values, x dash, y dash and w. This is our projective matrix, which is comprised of these two matrices. So the multiplication of these two matrices is nothing but p3 cross 4, and this is our world coordinate vector, that is capital X. So now for back projection, that is given small x small y, we want capital XYZ, what we do is we can take what is known as least square estimation. So here you can see that this is a underestimated condition, underdetermined condition, I'm sorry. So this is an underdetermined condition where you have less number of equations but more number of unknowns. So you can see the rows over here are less, there are 3 rows, but there are 4 columns. So since the number of unknowns are lesser than the number of the number of equations are less than the number of unknowns, so hence this is an underdetermined system. And for an underdetermined system we can use the underdetermined form of the least squares, which is something like this. So this is some sort of an inverse, you can call it as a pseudo inverse, but that does not necessarily give you the point that you want. So this inverse will actually give you any point that is on this line. So the line, this is the ray, the projected ray. So this is the 3D coordinate. When you join a ray from the 3D coordinate to the center, the camera center, so that ray is any point on this ray can be this x. So more formally I can write that as x dash, because x dash and x are actually two different points. So please don't get confused with this x and this x, because this is not bold. So this is a scalar value x, which is just telling you about the x coordinate, and this is a bold x, which is a vector which will have some x dash, y dash and z dash. So please understand that any bold character, any bold letter that you see is a vector. Yes, and these bolds are matrices, so you will have to know what is a matrix and what is a vector and what is a scalar. So given this least square estimate, you can just find some point that is on this line. You will most probably not get this point that you want, but you can at least get some point on this line which can be termed as x dash. So that we can denote as like this. So x dash is some p plus x, where p plus is nothing but this thing over here. So p plus is p transpose p transpose minus inverse. So this thing comes from the least squares, that is the underdetermined least squares case. Also note that p plus, so this thing into p, that is our projective matrix, this thing over here will give you an identity matrix because it is some sort of an inverse of this. So hence this will give you an identity matrix. So remember this because this will be used in the next slide. So we have got one point x dash which is on this line, but it is not necessarily this point that we want. We want this point. So now it turns out that it is impossible to get this particular 3D point by using only one camera. So that is also what we have discussed in the stereo camera case, that only by one image or one camera you will never be able to figure out this 3D world coordinate. So this is also some sort of a proof for that. So we have got x dash is equal to p plus x. So this is the same thing that we had written over here. So given 2 points, given a point x dash and given a point C, so C is our camera center. So given these 2 points, we can actually form a line that goes through these 2 points, and that line equation can be written like this. So this is the vector form of line equation, where if you are given two vectors and you want to find out what is the equation of the line joining these two vectors, so this is that vector form of line equation. So you can go to some sources that can refresh this thing, or else I'll put a link in the video, a link in the description below the video. So there you can get to one source which tells you how this equation came from. So the only thing to note about this equation is there's this parameter lambda. So as in when you change this lambda, you will get different points on this line. So say if lambda is 0, so if you take lambda to be 0, here this value will vanish because lambda becomes 0, and you'll get p plus x. So p plus x is nothing but this point x dash. So you got this x dash point which is on the line. Next, you take some other value of lambda, you'll see that this it'll give you some point which is on this line. So to verify that, so let us verify that the points that we get, these different points x of lambda, so by changing lambda, the different points that you get are actually on this line. So just a small verification for that. If I multiply the if I multiply the projective matrix on both the sides, so projective matrix is the matrix that transforms 3D coordinates to 2D representation or 2D image, right? So when I transform, so I'm just multiplying p on both the sides, so I'm taking a projective transform of all the 3D points. So when I do this, so p x of lambda, that means whatever point that I have, so x of lambda will be different points that are on this line, which we are going to verify now, and that is going to be equal to, so you get a p over here, so that is p plus x. So if you see this thing over here, you get p plus. So p plus is nothing but identity. We saw that in the previous slide. So p plus or p plus p, whatever. So this is going to be an identity matrix. So this is an identity matrix, and x. So you are left with x. plus lambda PC. So if you see PC, so PC means you have to project C. So you are projecting this 3D world point C to the image plane. So we have always kept this camera model such that PC, that is projection of the camera point onto the image, will give you 0, because it is actually so giving you a good clarity. Yeah, so this is the camera point that we have, the camera center. If we project this point, this camera point, onto our image plane, so you can see that it maps on the origin. So this is the origin of the image, 0 comma 0. So hence the projection of C onto the image is nothing but 0 comma 0, that is 0. Hence this point becomes 0. So you are just left with x. So this equation tells you, you project any point x of lambda. So you project any point x of lambda, you will get the same point x. So you change the values of lambda, how many ever different values you want. So that will move on this line that you can see, and that will represent a single point in the 2D image plane. So this again sort of tells you that from one camera you will not be able to get the 3D world coordinate, but what you will able to get is this line. So this line is what you have, and you know that the 3D world coordinate lies somewhere on this line. So that is one thing that you can infer. This 3D world coordinate xyz lies somewhere on this line, but you don't know exactly where is it on this line. So that is something that this equation tells you. Right. So yeah, I had this right. So to remove that ambiguity, we saw the stereo camera case where we have two cameras, and we sort of by two cameras we have one line for this camera and a different line for this camera, and by that you can get the 3D world coordinate that we desire. So that is something that we saw in the stereo camera case. So this is quite simple, and we have seen that in the stereo camera case. So to talk about that a little briefly, so we had two images which were separated by which were taken by just some displacement in a particular direction, say x, and we clicked the photo with this camera, and the same photo with the same scenes photo was clicked with this camera. So we have two images, and with these two images we found out the depth map. So we derived some equations, and we found out that this is the equation that tells you what is the depth of the particular point. So there are different points over here. So the depth of that point, the z coordinate of that point, is given by this equation. And further we found out the disparity map using this proportionality condition. So one thing that we saw in that thing was due to this constraint that both of these were just laterally displaced in one particular direction, you saw that a point over here, say I want to find out the depth of this. So first I'll have to find out where this particular point corresponds in this image, the other image, right? So we found out that here in this special case, this point will always lie in the same row of that image. So if this is in say row number 30, so this is the 30th row of this image, this point is on the 30th row, then this point, the corresponding point, will also lie on the 30th row of the image. So there were two things that we did over here. First thing is to find the corresponding points, that is to find out which x1 belongs to which x2. So which x1 over here belongs to which x2, so this, and that was the first thing. And the next thing, just put it into this formula, that is 1 upon x2 minus x1, that will give you the disparity value at that particular point. So that was about stereo. But now for an epipolar case, this is some kind of an image that you can get. So these are two views of the same house, but now you can see that over here, if I say take a line over here, so consider any point over here, consider this window point, so that may not be in the same row. So you can see that I have taken a row on this image, but this row actually corresponds to another line in this image. It is not that this row corresponds to the same row in this image as what was the case over here. So here you take any particular line, so any point or any line. So if you take this nose point, so you know that the nose point lies on the same row where this nose point lies, but that is not the case over here. Here different points could lie on different rows. So that is one of the problem that is faced by the epipolar geometry. So this is the first thing that we are going to see. How can we sort of find this line that we want for a particular point? So if you consider the points on this line, so the points on this line map to the points on this line in this image. So this mapping of a point in one image to its corresponding line in the other image is the first thing that we want to do, because if we don't do that, say if I want to find out the correspondence of this point in this image, then I'll have to manually search each and every point in the image, which is not very desirable. Also, the other thing that you can see is this point over here actually corresponds to this point over here. We can say by visual inspection, but you can see that both of these local neighbors of the point are quite different. You can see that there is this thing that is coming in middle because of the other view, from because of the different perspective that we have. So it is very difficult to find out actually what are the corresponding points. So it is very important that we first reduce this two-dimensional ambiguity, that is to find out this particular point everywhere in the image, to a one-dimensional ambiguity where you can at least tell that this point over here lies somewhere on this line. So, and these lines are what is called as epipolar lines. So that is what we are going to see more detail in the next video. So this is a small brief for that. So this was the basics that that is required for the epipolar geometry, and from the next video I am going to start with the epipolar geometry in detail. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.